Hello everybody, it's Rob here, and today we are going to be painting a Black Templar Terminator. This must be one of the most requested tutorials I've had in the past year, which is how to paint black. Now, there's multiple ways to go about painting black, and I think that this is most suitable this way for a Black Templar Terminator. I've also combined it with kind of like a cream armor because I've been keen to do like a Black Templar conversion with some of the Deathwing Terminators, but I will talk through as we go kind of why I think this is a good way to go about doing it, linking it to the basing as well, but of course it's not the only way. There are lots of different ways, but I just think that this way works for this particular kind of Terminator, this particular kind of model as well. And I'll talk about my thoughts and feelings about painting black as we go, because as you can see it's quite a long video today. So let's start off with our cream elements. So we're going to use bootstrap, brown, amber skin and pale sand, and we're going to be using a sponge again today for this tutorial. You can do everything that we're about to do with an airbrush if you have one. You can do everything that we're about to do with a brush if you prefer to use a brush as well. It's obviously just going to be more time consuming, and with an airbrush it will take no time at all. The only thing I would say about the airbrush is that if you want a textured kind of feel to the armor, the airbrush probably wouldn't be the way to go, whereas this creates quite a cool look and kind of lived in look. We're going to start off with bootstrap brown just as our base. This will take a couple of coats, and just remember to let it dry in between. Then we're going to move on to amber skin. This is quite a big jump from the bootstrap to the amber skin, so you might feel like you want to do a mix between the two, which is absolutely fine, but what you find with the sponge is that the layers go down thin enough, and if you build them up in thin coats waiting for each coat to dry, you will find that actually it's probably not necessary to do an in-between step, but the more you use a sponge, the easier this will become. I'm using makeup sponges. These kinds of makeup sponges come in different kind of sizes and different forms. I got these off Amazon. They probably cost me, I don't know, probably around £6-7 for kind of 12 sponges. Somebody asked me recently, can you use them afterwards? Yeah, absolutely, but you just need to clean them. So if you want to reuse them, just clean them. Going back to the shield here, so that's dried now, and then going back to the amber skin. So now we're going to kind of build up a layer of amber skin here, and as you can see, what we're trying to do is create kind of some form of gradient, but that will kind of come into play more when we add the washes a little bit later. But as I say, you're just building up this amber skin, and it creates quite a cool kind of like textured look using the sponge. Definitely feel it looks more kind of lived in than using an airbrush, but the airbrush of course just takes no time at all. That's the benefit of an airbrush. Next up we're using pale sand. The jump between amber skin and pale sand isn't so much. It's quite a nice kind of like jump up, but this is the brightest that we will go with our kind of ivory colour. I always think Black Templars for me look best with this kind of brown ivory colour rather than using like a brown grey. Rather than using like a cool grey or a blue grey. I think of Raven Guard when I'm thinking of kind of like cool greys, or greys that are or whites that are shaded with a kind of a bluish tint. I often think of Black Templars when I think of this kind of colour. I also think of Dark Angel's Deathwing as well, so this could be a good tutorial for Dark Angel's Deathwing if you're looking to do that. Right, we're going to move on to the black armoured elements now. Now we're going to use deep grey here. Deep grey is, it's a pretty dark grey, but you can see that it leaves behind, a substantial kind of colour. Build up your coats here in thin coats, as we said before, And what I'm really doing is focusing on the front of the model and the back of the model. The sides of the model are not really being hit by the sponge. We're kind of imagining a zenithal light is coming 45 degrees from the front and then 45 degrees from the rear as well. You can see me just here using a smaller sponge just to get into the nooks and crannies. I actually found this Black Templar a little bit easier to do with a sponge than all the other sponge tutorials I've done, because actually didn't need to really worry about going into kind of the nooks and crannies with this. It was all good. Right, next up we're going to be using Uniform Grey. So Uniform Grey is a really nice step up within the Army Painted Triads, and it is in fact the natural step up with the Triads here. So here we're just using less of the Uniform Grey. Hitting it on the highlights. We'll use one more colour after this, one more grey colour after this, but we won't go kind of any further than that. Black is a funny colour because you're always in that kind of dilemma of not wanting it to appear grey, not trying to do Space Wolves, but also leaving behind enough that you can tell that somebody's rendered the shapes on it. So that's always kind of where we're trying to be when we are painted black armor. Now this might look at this moment in time pretty grey, but we're going to use a lot of oils and we're going to use matte sprays on it. We're going to use washes on it as well. We're going to just knock back some of that grey colour in a bit as well. So sometimes we want to go lighter than we might feel comfortable, and then we can darken it down from there. That's my advice with this. So just trust in the process, and the end result I think looks pretty good. Using ash grey now, just doing the tippity top highlights over the model, being a bit more careful and using tweezers and a part of the sponge for this, because we don't want to make it too light with that ash grey colour, because it is very, very light. Right, next up we're going to be using soft tone. So this is straight from the bottle, but I wanted to show you all of the footage of this element. So you can leave the kind of like the rendering of the shapes here if you want to, but if you just want to add some kind of this soft tone into the shadows, I think that it just smooths everything out, just creates more contrast as well, and creates a really, really nice colour. So what you can see me doing there is applying the soft tone at the bottom, washing off my brush with clean water, and then just that in between bit, so it's not leaving behind kind of like a coffee stain, I'm just wiping away with my my brush. And I do exactly the same for the dark tone here. So basically what I want to do on the sides of the armour is use this dark tone, this black wash, and then I wick away with clean water the in-between part where I've applied the dark wash, and then you can see the grey. And what this does here, adding this dark wash in, it just tightens up that grey highlight that we've created, so it no longer appears grey and appears it appears more black. What I would say is that depending, if you want something more black than the end result that you saw right at the beginning of this video, then you're going to have to use more of this and do this process a little bit more. I felt it was absolutely fine, and actually really I wanted something that was sort of bordering grey and black, but as I say, what you want to do is just make the highlights a little bit tighter by putting this dark tone into the shadows. Right, next up we're moving on to the cloth, the tabard, and this is a 50-50 mix of amber skin and bootstrap brown. I was pleased how the tabard came out in the end, but I was a little bit cautious about whether I should do this a little bit later or do this now. I actually did it now, and I think that it worked out pretty well, but you could, if you wanted to, leave this still a little bit later. I was just playing around and wanted to play around with brown oils on that tabard just to darken down the recesses rather than using like a traditional wash, just to see what I could come up with, just to see if it would work. Turns out I thought it did work, but you don't have to do this. You could do this a little bit later if you wanted to. So you can see all the elements now just before we gloss varnish them, ready for our transfers, and this is what it should look like before a gloss varnish. So our gloss varnish is next. So we apply gloss varnish all over the model. You can use an airbrush, you can use a rattle can, whichever is your preferred gloss varnish. I'd highly recommend this process prior to adding your transfers down. I've done a whole transfer video if you want to refer to that, and I talk about the reason why that is. And what you can see me doing there is just applying the micro set and then applying the transfer over the top. And then a little bit later I will be using micro sol over that. But you can see I just go around. I only use 3 transfers on this, one on the shield, quite a large one on the shield, one on the shoulder pad, and one on the knee pad as well. There wasn't any smaller kind of like red transfers, or not that I had any in that kind of size for the knee, but I would have gone for red because I just thought like the red and black and cream kind of looked really, really nice. And what you can see here with the cotton wool bud or a Q-tip, we roll some clean micro salt over that transfer just to make it adhere to all those curves and all those shapes. I'd leave this for probably 5 or 10 minutes and then go back in again. Now we're on to the oil stages. Now if you've not used any oils before, they're really straightforward, they're really easy. You could, I guess, use washes if you wanted to, but you just need to wick them away fairly quickly. I've done that on a Deathwing kind of tutorial before, where I've added speed paint and then wicked it away with a cotton wool bud or a sponge. You can do that pretty quick. With the oils though, it gives you a lot of working time. So what you can see on the left hand side is lamp black mixed with burnt umber. This is probably about a 50-50 mix. This one we're going to use on the armor, on the black armor, and on the right hand side I've just got straight up burnt umber, which I'm going to be using on the cream sections. Now I wanted the whole model to be tinted with browns. So blacks and browns, but really browns. I wanted the idea that this is not just a straight up grey, it's a dirty, kind of a dirty black, a dirty grey colour that we're going for. And I wanted browns within there as well. And a little bit later, I'll talk about the base a little bit later, but I knew I wanted browns within the base to kind of give the idea that he's been fighting in that landscape for a long period of time. So browns within these black elements, or within the lamp black, was really important for me at this stage. As you can see, all the cream elements are given a all over wash of burnt umber, and you can kind of see the thickness of it here. It's not actually too thin. We want it to leave behind a mark. But I also use this burnt umber over the tabards. Again, I was kind of experimenting with the tabards here. I don't do this very often. I don't use oils on tabards very often on cloth. But I just wanted to see whether it worked. And I thought it did. And then this 50-50 lamp black burnt umber mix, we're just applying it all over the black elements of the model. And this is what I'm saying, which is that, you know, you can go quite grey at this point because you're going to knock it all back. With this oil wash, which will stain the underlying colours and the underlying model underneath. You know, still giving it a brownish tinge, but you know, lamp black is, if you've ever used it before, is very, very powerful. So it's knocking everything black. So I think that one of the things I would say is go slightly lighter than you think that you're going to need to go, and then you can knock it back in this stage. And then with a clean Q-tip, clean cotton wool bud, we can just wipe away the oils. I haven't used clean white spirits or mineral spirits on this because I did want to leave behind some of that kind of oil staining, just to give the idea of kind of grime and dirt. And you can see I'm using kind of different kinds of motions, and this just starts to create kind of incidental streaking as well, depending on the way that I'm dragging down that Q-tip. So it just starts to create, yeah, as I say, kind of like rain marks and streaks and things like that, which is quite cool. And then we do exactly the same, no different on the black armor elements and on the tabard as well. Takes a fair few Q-tips, cotton wool buds, and if you don't want any fibres left behind, you know, be careful. Or alternatively, you could use a makeup sponge for that process as well, that cleaning process. Once that's all cleaned up, you can then spray it with a matte varnish or apply matte varnish, and it gives this really cool kind of like matte effect. It's dirty, it's starting to be grimy. We're going to put a lot of battle damage on this a little bit later. But yeah, we are starting to get to where we want to be, and this is ultimately the grey colour. It's going to look like the black colour. If you like what you've seen today, then why not check out my Patreon? I've recently started it up, and it's a great way to support me and my work, and by becoming a Patreon subscriber, you can get access to discount codes at the Army Painter worth 10% off of your entire basket. You'll get monthly Q&A sessions where I take patrons' questions and go into them in depth. This could be about work I've done already, as well as asking about how I might go about a future project. If you've got questions, I'll use these sessions to answer them. You'll also get early access to tutorials, as well as a host of other benefits. You can get all this for as little as £3.99 a month. Links can be found in the description below. Right, welcome back. So we are going to start doing a little bit of edge highlighting here. Now, I haven't edge highlighted absolutely everything on this model. I have just gone for the most prominent edge highlights. Now, on previous models and previous tutorials that I've done with the sponge painting, I have actually taken the time to edge highlight everything. I didn't feel it was necessary with this model, partly because we're going to use a little bit of weathering and battle damage, and we want it to look a little bit, a little bit grimy, so we don't want it to look kind of too perfect. So, just the most prominent edge highlights for this one, just to render those shapes, I think is important, but not necessary to do every single one. So I used uniform grey for the black armour, and then amber skin on the white armour. And you can see here, just with this uniform grey, you can start picking out and starting to create some slightly tighter highlights here. A bit of fancy schmancy highlighting. You don't have to do this process. If you don't feel comfortable doing this process, then don't do it. But what it does is it just renders that black a little bit further, makes the highlight appear tighter and a little bit shinier as well. And when you stand back from it, rather than having it 1 foot away like I had it here, once you stand back from it, or you look at it at a distance on photos, you kind of go, "Oh, those looks like really tight highlights." In reality, they were pretty. It was no more difficult than what you just saw there. Just kind of stippling some highlights on. Right, next up, we're going to use a Brigandine brown, a slightly different brown, slightly darker, grimier, desaturated brown than the bootstrap brown that we used. And with a with a sponge and a set of tweezers, you can just go around and add a little battle damage here and there, wherever you think it's appropriate. And you can see me adding it onto the shield. Now, the shield is obviously a really important part on this model. It's front facing. It's not like it's facing towards the side. It's the bit that catches your eye straight away, along with the face. So it's really important that we got this bit right. And what you can see me doing here on the edges, so I didn't edge highlight this in any way because I knew that I would have got rid of it if I'd done a kind of like a lighter edge highlight, because I wanted kind of paint peeling off of these edges and scratches and kind of like damage into it. So I did kind of edge highlight with the amber skin, some of the cream, but on this I didn't feel it was necessary, just because I'm just basically getting rid of all the edges anyway with this darker brown, this Brigandine brown color. You can put scratches in, start creating nicks, and you could use a sponge on this, as I've done here, but also you can create kind of like striking motions with a sponge if you don't feel confident doing it with a brush. And then we're going to go back to the tabard. So with our straight up amber skin, now that kind of oil wash has made it a little bit darker, and then we can just naturally build up that amber skin on top of it, which creates quite a nice highlight. This was a relatively straightforward tabard to kind of paint. You can use the images on screen to kind of like paint yours, but actually it was pleasant to paint. Like, I often find with robes, sometimes they can be, the way that GW sculpts them, a little bit unpleasant to paint. These were relatively simple to do. Next up, we're going to use pale sand, and these are just going to be our kind of like our tighter tippity top highlights on our robe. Again, we don't want it too white. We don't want to make this too broad, this pale sand, because then you'd have very, very white robes against kind of like the griminess of the brown of the black and the cream armor panels. So it's really important that you do render it with just a pale sand color. Or an ivory colour, but don't go overboard with this. You don't need to kind of make these highlights too broad, just to render the shapes enough, So it looks nice. Right, we're going to use a 50-50 mix of greedy gold and death metal. This created a really nice kind of like greeny gold colour. Death metal is a really unusual colour if you see it in the hand. It's kind of like a, I don't know, I'm not even sure how I describe it. It's kind of like a greeny brass corrupted colour, and then adding it into the greedy gold creates this awesome corrupted gold colour, which I thought was perfect for Black Templars. It kind of worked really, really well. I think this could work on a lot of things though. I think if you're doing, you know, for 30k, if you're doing like Sons of Horus or something and looking for a gold, this like 50-50 mix of this could work quite well. I would never use this colour though on something glorious like an Emperor's Children or an Ultramarine or something like that. I think it's a little bit worn, a little bit corrupted, but worked quite well against the darkness of the plate. And just a note here, you can see how dark and black this armour is now. You know, once we've got other colours going on, once we started filling in the details, once the oils have done their thing, once we've used some kind of like edge highlights to make everything a little bit kind of lighter on those kind of like the most prominent edges, you can really tell the darkest elements of this model and just how black it actually kind of looks. So it's rendered without being Space Wolves, right? You can see here with the greedy gold, I'm just kind of just slapping this on. I'm not being too precise with it. I'm just just following the highlights, and then I'm using dark blue tone, and then just a touch of the darkness, which is a desaturated deep green blue color from the John Blanche set. I've just added the tiniest dash of that darkness into that blue dark blue tone. I haven't thinned it, but I'm using this as a wash. And I think you don't need to do any more than this for this particular model, because the focus really is that, you know, the cream elements and the black armor and the tabard. The golds are almost secondary. We don't need to spend too much time worrying about them. They'll still look good regardless. But this is a great like corrupted kind of patinaed wash for these kinds of golds using blues. I think it created a really kind of like interesting color. Right, next up we're going to use pale sand. You could use matte white here, but as I had pale sand on the wet palette anyway, I just decided to use this. And this, we're just laying down a foundation for our speed paints. So I'll use this on the Purity wax seals, and I'll also use it on the rope elements on it, and I shall use it on the scabbard as well, which will make a kind of like a brown colour. I do this a lot nowadays, especially when I'm kind of speed painting, which is just laying down a foundation of white and then putting a colour over the top of it and then kind of rendering or highlighting kind of on top of that. I think it's relatively straightforward. It looks quite good, and often it's the small details that can drive you mad. So doing this kind of really speeds things up. We're going to use Slaughter Red. Again, you want a colour that matches some of the transfers. You know, you don't want kind of an odd looking red that doesn't match the other transfers. We want everything to be quite tasteful and to match one another. So Slaughter Red did match with kind of the transfers. I thought it was a nice match. I have about 5 different red speed paints, and I felt that this was the appropriate one. We just add a layer over the top of any red elements that we're going to do here, and then with our next highlight we're going to add some Violent Vermilion just to do some tippity top highlights where we think the kind of like the light is coming from. Again, that 45-degree angle coming from the front downwards, and then one for the rear as well. But this is going to be hit by that that front facing kind of like light source. And then we just do some very tight highlights here just to render all those shapes. Right, thinned bootstrap brown. what I'm doing is just creating some streaks. I put all the footage in here because I basically made a number of mistakes as I went, and what I'm going to show you is how to correct it quickly. So drag this down, obviously in a downwards motion, going with gravity and going with the way that rain would fall. If you find that you kind of mess it up, then quickly with a cotton wool bud, just dip it in some water, lick it, wipe it away, and that should rescue it, and you can just start again. Usually I would do this with oils, and the benefit of oils is that you can wipe it away and not worry about the underlying colour. With this you have to be a little bit more precise, a little bit more careful, because it is obviously acrylic paint on top of it, going on top of a matted down acrylic paint. So that's why the oils have benefits here, but it's not impossible to do kind of like grime and rust streaks with just normal acrylic paints, with speed paints as well. Just take your time and just wipe it away quickly if it doesn't quite work out. You can see I made a number of mistakes there because I'm used to using oil. So just take your time. Not every single one you'll get correct, but just going in this downwards motion, lifting the brush off and then on again is the way that I found kind of like works best. Bootstrap brown works well. If you wanted more rusty, you could add a little bit of molten orange or molten lava into bootstrap brown, just to make it kind of like a browny orangey colour. And I think that will work well as well. Right, so I used some textured kind of like texture paste on the bottom here. This was from Ammo. It was one of their darker brown colours. Then I've added some Battlefield Rocks from the Army Painter. I didn't use any kind of like foliage on the base. I felt that the rocks and this kind of colour kind of just worked perfectly. I didn't feel I needed kind of anything else after this. Then I dry brush it with Command Khaki. I think it was, or it was a khaki colour. But to be honest with you, amber skin would work just as well. We just want to give it a nice gentle highlight because we're going to smash this base with weathering powders in a bit. So it doesn't matter too much what you kind of dry brush it with. A khaki colour I think would work really, really well though. Take your time. I definitely make sure the rocks are stuck to the base and dry, because I was kind of speeding through this and then knocking over the rocks. Track Rust from Ammo. This is a nice it's a brown colour, but it's got hints of kind of orange in. But actually, I did this tentatively, start off with just to make sure the colour was okay, and then I applied it to the base. I was like, aha, this is perfect. This is exactly the colour I want. It kind of ties everything together really, really nicely with the model, the griminess, the browns, those burnt umber colours, with this Track Rust weathering powder, and then just mashed in around the feet. Worked really, really well. I didn't seal the base because I'm not using that much weathering powder. I'm really just sort of stabbing it in, so it's not going to come off. But this also isn't a gaming piece either. So if you did feel the need to kind of fix the pigments, you could use some pigment fixer if you wanted to. But as I say, I wasn't using a lot here, so didn't feel necessary. And this is the finished model. This is it in all its glory. As you can see, we started off quite grey, and then we've created something that actually, with all the things that we've done to it, have really knocked it back, and I think kind of it reads as black, and I think that's the most important thing. It reads as a highlighted black with some interesting highlights on it as well. But as I say, yeah, I think it looks pretty cool. So just to finish off, I want to say a massive thank you to my Patreons. Thank you guys for supporting me. As of this video dropping, I've probably had the Patreon running for a couple of days, not too long at all. But if you've got this far and you enjoyed the video, then please make sure that you like and subscribe, and don't forget to leave a comment as well. If you are interested in joining the Patreon and allowing me to create more content, then the link will be in the description down below as well. If you've got any questions, about this video, then I suggest hitting up the Patreon, where I do a Q&A session once a month, going through any questions that you guys have about this video, about all the other videos I've done, as well as my ongoing commissions as well, and what I'm working on. So if you've got an idea for an army and want me to talk it through for you, that's the best place to hit me up. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.